Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi shir.
Shalom and welcome to today's Daf Yomi, Brachos Daf Gimel. We're a couple of lines from the top. Atzoif ha'ashmura harishayna. Rabbi Lezer teaches us in the Mishnah, what is the Soiv Zman Kriyash Mashal Arvis? Until what point can one say Krishma at night? Atzoif ha'ashmura harishayna. Until the end of the first Ashmura, the first watch. He's referring to the groups of Malachim who serve Hashem and say Shira at appointed times, and they take turns, they rotate between themselves throughout the night. Those are the Ashmurais that he's referring to. Now there's a machlekes in the Gemara later on. How many Ashmurais are there in a night? According to one Shita, a night of 12 hours consists of 3 Ashmurais, giving each Ashmura a 4-hour time slot. According to another Shita, a night of 12 hours consists of 4 Ashmuras, giving each Ashmura a time frame of 3 hours. Ask the Gemara, my kasava Rabbi Lezer, which Shita, which opinion is Rabbi Lezer following? Ikasava sholish mishmaris hava laila, that a night consists of 3 mishmaris. So a 12-hour night is split into 3 groups, giving each one 4 hours. If so, Lema d'arba shois. Why doesn't Rabbi Lezer simply state Soiv Zman Krishma is up until 4 hours? Why doesn't he speak in terms that are understood to typical earthlings? Why is he making reference to phenomena that are taking place up in heaven? Because of our arba mishmaris hava laila, if he holds that a night of 12 hours consists of 4 mishmaris, giving each one 3 hours, leima at sholish. If so, let him say up until 3 hours, which is the end of the first Ashmura. Why is he making reference to mishmaris in heaven? Answers the Gemara, la'olam, certainly kasavar sholish mishmaris hava laila. Rabbi Lezer holds that a night of 12 hours consists of 3 mishmaris, giving each one 4 hours. If so, why doesn't he simply say atzoif hashmura rishayna? Well, Kamash Malan, Rabbi Lezer is actually teaching us a chiddush. He's teaching us a phenomenon that can actually benefit the people down here on earth. Kamash Malan, the ika mishmaris b'rakia, the ika mishmaris b'ara. There are mishmaris. There are events taking place up in Shemayim, and similarly, there are corresponding events taking place at the same point in time down here in earth. And it's very beneficial to one who, for some reason, doesn't know what time it is. It's dark outside, doesn't have a clock, etc. So, although he can't figure out what time it is, how many hours have actually passed, but if he pays attention to these specific signs that we'll mention soon, these will provide an indication, a siman, regarding the mishmaris in Shemayim. And as soon as he sees the siman that the first Ashmura is coming to an end, he knows that is a Soiv Zman Krishma. Continues the Gemara. The Sanya of learned in the Brisa. What are these signs? Rabbi Lezer oimesh sholish mishmaris havei laila. A night consists of 3 mishmaris. I'll call mishmar mishmar. At the end of every mishmar, Yoshev HaKadosh Baruch Hu v'shoyekari. Hashem sits and roars like a lion in mourning. Shenema Hashem imorim yishak. Hashem from up above will roar. U'imoin kachay, from his holy abode, Yitain Kailai, he puts forth his voice. Shoy Ishag al Naveu. He roars and he mourns on account of the Beis Hamikdash that was destroyed. V'simul davar. What are the simanim? What are the signs in this world? What are the events that indicate the changing of the guard up in heaven? Says the Gemara, Mishmar Rishayna. The first mishmar is Chamor Noir, a donkey brays. Shniya, the second mishmar, Klavim Tzayakim, dogs scream. Shlishis, the third one, is Tinaik Yonik Rishtei Imai, a baby nurses from his mother. V'isha Misaperes Imbala, and a woman begins conversing with her husband. Rashi explains, it is already the beginning of the day, people are beginning to wake up and start conversing with the people close by. So, it turns out that actually Rabbi Lezer is benefiting us by stating in his halacha that the Soiv Zman Krishma is dependent, is connected with the Soiv Hashmur Rishayna. By doing so, he is teaching us that the events taking place in Shemayim are actually mirrored with occurrences taking place in this down here, and therefore by paying close attention to these various signs that he mentioned, we can well be aware of the chilufei mishmoros, of the changing of the guard taking place in Shemayim, and thus we are fully aware of the Soif Zman Kriyas Shema. Continues the Gemara. Ma'ika chasher Rebbe Lezer. What is Rebbe Lezer referring to when he gives us these signs? It chilas mishmoros kechashiv. These three simanim, the chamor, the klavim, the isha, do they indicate the onset, the beginning of the mishmaris? The beginning of the first mishmar you have the chamor, the beginning of the second mishmar you have the klavim, and so on. If so, we have a kasha. Mishmar Rishayna, the first mishmar, begins right at nightfall. Siman alamali. Why do we need a sign for that? Or two, everybody sees it is plain and evident for all to see that it's turning dark. So we don't need a simon for that. If we'll propose that Rebbe Lezer's simanim are indicative of the ending, of the completion of the mishmaris, if so, we'll ask the same question in the reverse. If he's referring to the endings, why does he need to provide a siman for the last mishmar, Yimamahu? At the end, the completion of the last mishmar, it's already daybreak. So why do we need a siman for that? Says the Gemara, Elo, you must say, Chashiv Seif Mishmar Rishayna. The first siman is a siman for the end of the first mishmar. At the end of the first mishmar, you have the donkey braying. Utchilas Mishmar Achroina. The last siman of the Tinaik and the Isha are simanim regarding the beginning of the last mishmar when it's still dark. The Emtsoyis, the middle siman of the Klov Mtsoyakim, is Emtsoyis Demseisa. That is referring to the midpoint of the middle mishmar. So all of them are occurring during darkness, and therefore one needs to have a siman to recognize them. Another teretz, Kulu Soif Mishmaris Kechashiv. We're speaking about the endings, the completion of the mishmaris. If so, b'chitema, if you'll say achroino leitzarich, why is it necessary to give you a siman for the last mishmar? It's already daybreak. L'may nafkamina, what is the practical benefit? L'mikri krishma, to read krishma, l'man the gani b'bayis safel, for one who is lying in a darkened room, v'lo yoda azman krishma emas, and he has no idea that it's already daybreak, he has no windows, it's dark. So in that case, he will pay attention to the siman. Kivant isha misaperes bala, since as soon as an isha begins conversing with her husband, and the baby begins nursing, so now he knows it's already the end of the last mishmar, and it's already the beginning of the day. It's time to get up, leikum v'likri, and to read Krishma. The Masha writes a very interesting thing, that the siman of isha misaperes bala is a remes, symbolizes Klal Yisrael with the Eibishter. That Isha is Klal Yisrael and Bala is Hashem. And as we mentioned earlier, that the time of the Seif Mishmaris is a time where Hashem expresses words of mourning. He's shayig. He evokes mercy and Rachmanis on account of the Churban Beis HaMikdash. Says the Maharsha, that is a time of Rachmanis. That is a time that is mesugal, that is fitting to evoke mercy, to daven to Hashem. And hence, the siman is Isha Misaperes and Bala, which that is a remes to Klal Yisrael's davening to Hashem. According to the words of Maharsha, we may add that the other simanim as well, perhaps are indicative of this phenomenon. They symbolize the concept of a Shas Rachmim, a fitting time to daven to Hashem, during the other mishmars as well, which is the chamor noir, the donkey braying, the klov tzoyakim, which are perhaps a remez as well for the concept of tefillah to Hashem during those special moments of Rachmanis. Continues the Gemara. Omar Rav Yitzchak bar Shmuel Mishmei Rav. Gimel mishmaris have halayla. The night consists of 3 mishmaris. I'll call mishmar yoshev HaKadosh Baruch Hu v'shoy kari. During every one of them, during the ending of every one of them, Hashem sits and roars like a lion. Va'omer oy lebanim, woe to the children Shabbanisayim hechrafte es beisi, due to their averis. I was compelled to destroy my home, the Beis Hamikdash. V'sarafte secholei, and I burnt my hechel. V'igleisim, and I exiled them levein umois ha'olam, to in between the nations of the world. Continues the Gemara. Tanya Rabbi Yosi, Pam Achas Hayisi Mahalach Baderech. Says Rabbi Yosi, I was once traveling, walking on the road. V'nichnasti lechurva, Achas mechurvet Yerushalayim lispal. And I entered one of the churvas of Yerushalayim, one of the ruins of Yerushalayim, in order to daven. I needed to have an enclosed area that was conducive to kavana of tefillah. So I went into ruins, even though I knew perhaps it's not the safest place. As the Mashar explains, he figured that the schus of his tefillah would protect him. But Eliyahu Zachar Latoif, Eliyahu Navi came along, V'shamar li ala Pesach, and he waited patiently by the doorway, until I finished, until I completed davening. Once I finished davening, Amar li Eliyahu Navi greeted me, Shalom Alecha Rebbe, peace to you, my Rebbe. V'amarti lo, I responded, Shalom Alecha Rebbe Yomari, Shalom unto you, my Rebbe, my master. V'amar li, he told me, B'ni, my son. Eliyahu Navi challenged him. He says, my son, why? Why did you place yourself in sakana? Why did you go into the ruins, into the churva? Amarti yispal, I needed to daven. V'amar li, hoyilcha yispal baderech. You should have davened out on the road. V'amarti li misyari hayisi. I was concerned, shema yafsiku b'yavir drachim. Perhaps the wayfarers will interrupt my tefillah. They will interrupt my kavana. I will not be able to daven properly. Amar Ali, he told me, if that's the case, you should have davened an abridged version of tefillah. Rashi takes to say that that's referring to the tefillah's Havinenu, mentioned later on in the Masechta, where you take the first and last parts of Shemoneh Esrei, and the middle part you abridge it, you shorten it. That is tefillah's Havinenu. We don't ordinarily advocate one to daven tefillah's Havinenu, but in this case, we had no choice. Where it was either davening in the churva, which is a makam sakana, or staying on the road and davening a short tefillah, which perhaps he could have completed without interruption. So Eliyahu Navi told him that was preferred. That would have been the preferred method to go with. But at that point, I learned from him 3 lessons. Firstly, lamati she'nechnas in the churva. One may not enter a churva. Secondly, lamati she'mispalim b'derech. One may indeed daven on the road if he needs to. It is better to daven on the road than go into a churva, which is a makam sakana. The third thing I learned was lamati she'mispalim b'derech. If somebody is compelled to daven on the road, mispalel tefillah k'tzara, then he davens at tefillah k'tzara. Continues the Gemara. V'amar li, Eliyahu Navi asked him further, B'ni, my son, ma koil shamata b'churva zu? What voice did you hear in the churva? V'amarti lo, I told him, Shamati baskoil, I heard a heavenly voice, Shemenahemes kayoina, that is whining like a dove, Vaymeres. Oy lebanim, woe to the children, Shabarim Seyem, Hechrafti es beisi, because of their sins I destroyed my home, Esrafti es echoli, I burnt my hechel, Ve'gleisim ben umois, I sent him into Gullus between the nations. V'amar li, Eliyahu Navi told me, Chayecha v'chayreishcha. This is a lashon of shvua. I promise you, leishazu b'vad. This doesn't happen only at this point. It didn't only happen then. Oymeres kach. Not just at this point. Does the shechina, does the baskoil reverberate through this churva? Ela b'chol yoyim v'yoyim. Every single day, sholish pa'amim emeres kach. 3 times a day, there is this baskoil. As we mentioned earlier, during the 3 mishmaros, Hashem roars like a lion and expresses these sentiments. And not only this, whenever the Yidden enter the Beis Knesses and Beis Medrash and they respond in Kaddish, Hashem's great name should be blessed. Hashem nods in approval. Fortunate is the king that they used to praise him so in his home in the Beis Hamikdash. Woe to the father who needed to exile, to send his children away. Woe to the children who were exiled, who were distanced from their father's table. Now the Gemara's analogy to Shulchan Avim, Gemara compares the being around, being present during the built Beis Hamikdash. The Gemara compares it to Shulchan Aviyam, because as the Gemara explains elsewhere, that the hashpa, the sustenance of the world, was channeled, used to be channeled through the conduit, through the Beis Hamikdash. And in fact, the Mishnah Sotah says that after the Churban affected the whole world, even on a material level. Nital Tama Peris, the flavor of the produce was diminished. So we see that the hashpa, the parnasa of the world, used to come directly from the Beis Hamikdash. It is compared to a Shulchan Aviyam, to our father's table. We were eating on our father's table. Now, at the time of Golus, that changed, and the hashpa and the sustenance is coming in an indirect fashion. It is compared to somebody who was distant from his father's table. Golu mi'al Shulchan Aviyam. The Rosh Hashanah also points out the difference in the Lashonis in the Gemara. Asher hamelech shemakal s'noisei beisakach. The time of binyan, the time of the presence of the Beis Hamikdash, the Gemara refers to that as a melech, because his kingdom, Hashem's reign, was evident, was clear for all to see. Then afterwards, the Gemara changes, Mali la'av shiglo is banav. Because at the time of Churban, his kingdom is not so evident, it's not so seen, it is not so befarhesia, and therefore, the more appropriate term to use is father, av, rather than melech. Taisus points out something very interesting, that there's a machzor vitri, there's a shita that writes, what is the explanation, what is the pirush of the Yehesh Rabba that we say every day in Kaddish? Yehesh Rabba mevorach la'olam. What does that mean? So machzor vitri explained as follows. We daven to Hashem, Yehesh his name should be, Rabba should become great, should become big. There should be a geula, and Hashem's name will become shalem, will become spread and recognized, etc. Says Taisus, that can't be the correct pirush, because in our Gemara we see the Gemara says va'oinen Yehesh hagadol, Hashem's great name should be mevorach. So you see that hagadol is part of the description. Yehesh hagadol, his great name should be mevorach. So that's a raya, not like the machzor vitri, that the pirush, the translation of Yehesh Rabba mevorach means Yehesh Rabba, his great name means in the present, this is his great name, should be mevorach, we daven that it should be blessed la'olam la'olmei olmaya. Continues the Gemara, Tanu Rabbanon, we've learned in a brayso, mipnei shloisha devarim ein nechnasin l'churva. We've just learned a lesson from Eliyahu Hanavi. One may not enter a ruins of churva. What is the reason for that? Says the brayso, there are actually three reasons. Mipnei shloisha devarim ein nechnasin l'churva. Mipnei chashad. The first reason is mipnei chashad, not to evoke suspicion, so that he's not suspected of entering there to do an aver of znus. The second reason is mipnei mapoilas, for fear of the ruins collapsing. The third reason is mipnei mazikim, for concern that perhaps there are demons present in the mapoilas who may harm him. Says the Gemara, mipnei chashad, v'teipek le'mishum mapoilas. Why is it necessary to have the tam of chashad if we already know that he may not enter the churva for fear of collapse? So why do we need an additional reason? Says the Gemara, we're speaking about b'chalati, we're speaking about a recently built structure, it's stable. So it happens that one of the walls perhaps collapsed, but the rest of the structure is stable and there is no concern of further collapse. And in that case, the tam of apelis won't apply, and therefore it is necessary to give us a tam of chashad. Ask the Gemara further, we already know he can't go there because of the mazikim. Says the Gemara, betray, we're speaking about two people going together, and the mazikim won't harm them. If that's the case, he betray. We're speaking about two people, chashad namileka. If that's the case, there's no room for chashad either, because we learned in the Mishnah Kedushin, and isha achas miseachedes im shnei anoshim. There's no iser yichud by two men. Rashi explains because there's an element of shame and embarrassment between them, and therefore there's no iser yichud in that case. Says the Gemara, if we're speaking about two people together, then the reason of chashad won't either apply. So it is permitted to go into this churva. Betray chashad namileka. Says the Gemara, betray pritzi. We're speaking about two people entering, but they are pritzi, they are prutzim, they are men of low moral character. In that case, there is an Isser Yichud for an Isha to be Mesiached with them, because what is the reason for the heter? Because of the element of shame, of embarrassment. In the case of Prutzim, that element doesn't exist and the heter wouldn't apply. Therefore, it still remains the reason of Mipnei Ha'achshad. So in conclusion, we're speaking about a stable structure, we're speaking about two people going together, but they are Prutzim, and therefore the only concern is Chashad of Znus. Continues the Gemara, Mipnei Ha'polis. The second reason was that perhaps the ruins might collapse and harm the person that is going there. We already know you can't go there because of the first reason of Chashad, Umazikim, and because of the reason of Mazikim. Says the Gemara, Betrei Uksheri, we're speaking about two people entering, and they are Ksherim, they are individuals of high moral character. So in that case, there is no problem of Chashad. In that case, there is no concern of Mazikim because there are two people. The only remaining concern is the Mapolis concern. Says the Gemara, Mazikim. What was the third reason? For fear of Mazikim. Why isn't it sufficient to give us the reason of Chashad Mapolis? Says the Gemara, we're speaking about a stable structure. We're speaking about two people going in together, and they are ksherim. In that case, the only remaining concern we have is the mazikim, because it is a chur v'chadati, it is stable, and therefore there's no chashash mapolis. We're speaking about two people that are ksherim, and there's no chashad of avera, and therefore it is necessary to mention the concern of mazikim to be applied in this case. As the Gemara, if we're speaking about two people, mazikim amileka. We just mentioned before that mazikim will not harm two people. Says the Gemara, Bimkaimin Chashinan. We're speaking about that this is their place, they are known to be found in this place, this is their sort of Makam Kavua, and even if two people enter their domain, they are placing themselves in danger from the Mazikim. Alternatively, we can say, we're speaking about a single person entering, we're speaking about a stable structure that is found out in the field. The hasam over there, mishum chashad leka, there's no concern of chashad of znus. Why? The isha b'daber le'shchicha. A woman is not commonly found out in the field, and therefore there is no chashash, there's no concern of collapse because of churva chadati. There's no concern of chashad because of its location. The only remaining concern is mishum mazikin ika. The only thing we're concerned about is the mazikim. So in conclusion, we have three reasons to forbid entry into a churva, either mipnei achshad, or mipnei mapolis, or because of mazikim. Why is it necessary to have all three reasons? Because there are cases, there are circumstances where one will apply and the other won't. For instance, chashad will not apply by two people that are ksherim. It will not apply in the dabra in the field. The second reason of mipnei mapolis will not apply to a churva chadati, a stable structure, and the tam of mazikim will not apply to two people entering together, provided it is not their makam kavua. Continues the Gemara. We've mentioned earlier that a night consists of a number of mishmaris. How many mishmaris are there in a night? There is a machlekes Tanai Rabbanon. Arba mishmaris hava layla divrei Rebbe. According to Rebbe, a night of 12 hours consists of 4 mishmaris, giving each mishmar 3 hours. A night of 12 hours consists of merely 3 mishmaris, with each one having 4 hours. My time of Rav Nassan. What is the raya? What is the source of Rav Nassan? Gideon arrived with 100 people that were with him to the edge of the camp. When did he show up there? The beginning of the middle Ashmura. Tana, ain't tichayna. The term middle tichayna indicates it indicates that there is one prior and one following. So evidently, there is a total of 3 mishmaris. The Rebbe, how does Rebbe respond to this raya? My tichayna. What does tichayna? What does middle mean? Achas min tichayna shebetichaynis. One of the middle ones. Meaning, there are 2 middle mishmaris. with one before and one after for a total of 4 mishmaros. Rabbi Nassan counters by saying, Miksiv tichoynes shabetichoynes. Does the pasuk then say tichoynes shabetichoynes? He arrived at the Rosh Hashmores hatichoynes shabetichoynes? No, he doesn't say that. It says tichoyna ksiv, which is a singular lashon, which indicates that there is only one middle mishmar with one before and one after for a total of 3 mishmaros. Continues the Gemara. My time of the Rebbe. What is the reason for Rebbe's shita that the night consists of 4 mishmaros, with each mishmar having 3 hours? In one place we find David HaMelech says, Chatzos laila okum lahoides lecha. I get up at Chatzos at midnight to praise you al mishpatetet kecha for your righteous judgments. Because of Echad Omer, there's another pasuk that says, Kidmu einai ashmuros. My eyes preceded 2 mishmaros. So that would seem to indicate that the point of awakening, the Chatzos Laila, when David awakens, is actually preceding the 2 remaining ashmuros of the rest of the night. So it must be then that the night totals 4 mishmaros, 2 before Chatzos and 2 after. It must be Arba mishmaros Havi Alayla. A night consists of 4 mishmaros. So this is Rebbe's proof. For Rabbi Nassan, how does Rabbi Nassan respond to this raya? For Rabbi Nassan, Savalok Rabbi Shua. Rabbi Nassan interprets this pasuk of Kidmu Einai Ashmuros in a different context. Savalok Rabbi Shua. He's following the opinion of Rabbi Shua, who says as follows. This nan, if we learned in the Mishnah, Rabbi Shua says, until when can one read Shema in the morning? Ad shalosh shos, until 3 hours. Why? Because the pasuk says, what is the zman kriyash mashel shachris ubeshachbar b'kumecha? B'kumecha, when it is a time to awaken. Says Rabbi Shua, although the ordinary person gets up right at the beginning of the day, at daybreak, at least in those days, nevertheless, since we find that some individuals linger and they sleep in a bit further, for instance, the Malachim, Shekain derech Malachim lamed b'shalosh shoyis, since the Malachim wake up only b'shalosh shoyis, beginning of the 3rd hour, so therefore that extends the Zman Kriyash Mashal Shacharis up until that point. It is still considered Uvekumecha, time of getting up. So Rabbi Nassan says as follows. When David HaMelech said, Kidmu Einai Ashmuros, my eyes precede the Mishmaros, 2 Mishmaros, what he meant relative to the other kings. Meaning, I wake up 2 Mishmaros prior to the time that the other kings wake up. So, if he's at the moment of Chatzos, so we have 6 hours remaining to the night, plus another 2 hours of day until they wake up, for a total of 8 hours. And there we go, that's our 2 Mishmaros. He wasn't referring to 2 Mishmaros remaining till the end of the night, like Rebbe interpreted, but rather he was referring to 2 Mishmaros that are left, that are remaining up until the other kings would wake up. Continues the Gemara. Shis delal. So we have 6 hours remaining for the night. We're tired to the Yamama. We add another 2 of day. Havilu shtei mishmaros. So 8 hours equal 2 mishmaros, because each mishmar is 4 hours according to Rabbi Nassan. So this is the way Rabbi Nassan answers the raya that Rebbe brought from the pasuk of Kidmu Einai Ashmuros. It is not that David HaMelech is saying, my eyes have preceded the 2 remaining Ashmuros of the evening, which according to Rebbe indicated to us that the 6 remaining hours are a combination of 2 mishmaros, and therefore the night totals 4, 2 before Chatzos and 2 after, but rather he's referring to something totally different. Another teretz in the Gemara, another answer. Rav Ashi Amar, what did David HaMelech mean when he said Kidmu Einai Ashmuros, plural, 2 mishmaros? He meant Mishmar Palga. He meant the 6 remaining hours of the evening, which equal a mishmar and a half according to Rabbi Nassan's calculation. So why then does he give it the term ashmurais, which is a plural language. Says Rav Ashi, mishmara palga nami mishmaris karlahu. As long as it's more than one, it is appropriate to apply a plural language. So in conclusion, how many ashmurais are there in any given night? According to Rebbe, there are 4 mishmaris, with each mishmar consisting of 3 hours. Rebbe brought a raya from the pasuk of Kidmu Eina Ashmuris. Davar HaMelech used to wake up at Chatzos, and that preceded the remaining 2 Ashmuris until daybreak. Apparently, a night consists of 4 Ashmuris, 2 prior to Chatzos and 2 post Chatzos. According to Rav Nassan, a night consists of only 3 Ashmuris, giving each mishmar 4 hours. Rav Nassan's raya was from the pasuk of Gideon, who arrived at the beginning of the middle Ashmura, which would imply that there is one before and one following, for a total of only 3 Ashmuras. Now, the Chassam Sofer brings a very interesting chiddush in the name of the Minchas Yaakov regarding Lechem Mishnah. The Minchas Yaakov said a great chiddush that if somebody needs to have Lechem Mishnah, needs to have 2 loaves of challah on Shabbos, and he only has 1.5, does that constitute Lechem Mishnah or not? Says the Minchas Yaakov, from this Gemara we have a proof that even 1.5 is considered like 2. The Gemara says, or Rashi says, 1.5 mishmaris karlahu are called mishmaris. So it's considered to be Lechem Mishnah even if he only has 1.5 loaves. Says the Chassam Sofer, our Gemara is only referring to plural versus singular. As long as it's more than one, a plural term can be applied to it. But that is not to say that it has the significance of 2. Lechem Mishnah means 2, shnei. When one is required to have 2 items, 1.5 certainly will not suffice. Continues the Gemara. V'amar of Zrika, Amar of Abba bar Kahana. Amar of Zrika, Amar of Ami, Amar of Shuban Levi. Ein oimer v'nei ha-meis el advarav shel meis. One may not converse in the presence of a mace, only matters that concern the mace, that are dvarav shel meis, that are for the benefit of the mace. Amar Abba bar Kahana, lo yamar al b'divrei Torah. This is only said regarding speaking words of Torah. Aval mila de'alma, just plain discussion, less lambad, that is not a problem. Rashi explains, since it is a mitzvah for a yid to constantly speak in divrei Torah, so by doing so in front of a mace who cannot take part in this conversation, it is called loyeg l'rosh. It is as if he is mocking a pauper. He is degrading him, and therefore one may not speak divrei Torah in front of the mace. But this only applies to words of Torah. However, just plain discussion, this reason wouldn't apply, since it is not a mitzvah to involve yourself in this type of discussion. There's another version of its halacha. This halacha of not speaking in front of a mace, this is said even regarding divrei Torah, which is a mitzvah. Still, one may not do so in the presence of a mace. The kolshkein milad alma, certainly regarding just plain conversation. And what is the reason for this shita? Because a person must appear as if he is totally concerned and involved in the mourning and the availus of the mace. Therefore, he may not involve himself in other discussion, whether it's divrei Torah, whether it's not divrei Torah, so as not to appear as if he's being Masich Das, diverting his attention from the mace. And Tosfos points out this is only b'toich daled amas of the mace, within 4 amas of the mace. Tosfos as well brings the Rav Alphus who paskin, like the first sheet of the Gemara, that this halacha is only regarding divrei Torah. Continues the Gemara, is that so? That David HaMelech used to wake up at midnight? We find a pasuk which describes David as waking up mi'urta from the beginning of the evening. I used to get up baneshef and daven to you. When my the high neshef urtu, how do we know that neshef is referring to the beginning of the evening? Neshef, when the day darkened, in the darkness of the night. So we see that neshef is actually referring to the beginning of the night. So it seems to be a contradiction. On one pasuk we see that David HaMelech used to wake up chatzos laila okum lahoydis l'cha. Another pasuk describes him as waking up a neshef in the beginning of the evening. So how do we reconcile this contradiction? Omar V'Isha, Omar V'Acha. This is the solution. Hachi Kamar. This is what David HaMelech says. Certainly, David HaMelech, his usual practice was to wake up, to be up already in the beginning of the night. Like it says, Kidamti b'neshev hashaveya. So why then does David HaMelech say, I wake up chatzos? What he meant to say was that on the rare occasion that I was not up from the beginning of the night, nevertheless, I would never sleep past chatzos. Another teretz l'kasha, Rav Zera Amar, at chatzos laila misnamnim kasus. Until chatzos, David HaMelech was partially up. He would doze. He would sleep very lightly, similar to the dozing of a horse, who never really sinks into a deep sleep. From chatzos and on, he would totally wake himself and be completely awake. So the pasuk that says "Kidamti b'neshev," I used to wake up, I used to be up already from the beginning of the night, was referring to his light state of sleep, misnamnem. Rashi says that he was oisek b'torah kshu misnamnem. Even during this state, he was still being oisek b'torah. So this happened until chatzos. From chatzos and on, chatzos laila akum lo'idus lacha, he was completely awake. Why did he have this practice? So the Farshim say that he didn't want to immerse himself deeply in sleep, so as not to invite on himself the ruach ra, the evil spirit, which is shir, which rests on a person and necessitates us to wash our hands. So the David did not want to taste this tam of the ruach ra, tam of misa. We know that sleeping is echad mishishim b'misa, is somewhat resembles misa, and therefore he kept himself in a very low state of sleep, and this is the way he conducted himself on a daily basis. And that happened up until chatzos. Afterwards, he was completely awake. A third teretz, Rav Ashi says, Rav Ashi Amar at chatzos lailo yoisek b'divrei Torah. Up until chatzos, he was involved in divrei Torah. Mekan ve'elach b'tir shirs shishbachos. Afterwards, he was involved in singing and praising Hashem. So in conclusion, we had a stira. One pasuk said David HaMelech used to wake up in chatzos laila. Another pasuk says he used to be up already in the beginning of the night. We have three explanations, three resolutions. One pshat is that although he usually would be up already in the beginning of the night, but on the occasion that didn't happen, nevertheless, he never slept past chatzos. Another teretz of the Gemara is that from the beginning of the night until chatzos, he would doze off. Came chatzos, he would completely wake up. The third pshat in the Gemara is that from the beginning of the night until chatzos, he was oisik b'Torah. From chatzos laila, akam lahoitus l'cha, he would involve himself in shiros v'yisishbachis. Ask the Gemara further. V'neshef urtu, how can you translate the word neshef as being evening? Ha-neshef tzafrahu. We find that neshef is referring to the morning. Dechsiv, vayakim David. This is referring to David HaMelech beating Amalek. He beat them me-nefshef v'ad-erev lamachrosam. From neshef until erev, until the evening, the next day of their arrival. So it would seem from here that neshef is morning. And therefore the pasuk is telling us David beat them from neshef, meaning from morning until night. My love, must you not translate mitzafer vad leilya, from the morning to the night? So you see that neshef doesn't mean evening, but rather it means morning. Says the Gemara, neshef really means evening. When the pasuk says neshef ad erev, the pasuk means from evening to evening, from tonight evening up until all the way until tomorrow night. Loi mi'urta v'adurta, from evening to evening. Says the Gemara, Hachi, if that's the way you're translating, so why does the pasuk change the terminology? The pasuk says mi'haneshef ad erev. If they both mean the same thing, so the Torah should be consistent. Lichtay mi'haneshef ad neshef. The pasuk should say from neshef to neshef, or oy me'erev ad erev. They both mean the same thing. Why does the Torah say mi'haneshef ad erev? That would seem to imply that neshef is not erev, like we proposed earlier. So we have a kasha. Elam Rava. The truth is that neshef doesn't mean evening and doesn't really mean morning either, but rather trei nishvi havu. The word neshef can actually contain two meanings. It means pushed away, moved away. Nashaf leilya, when the night gets pushed away, v'asi yamama, then the day comes. So in this case, in this context, neshef can mean daybreak, or alternatively, nashaf yamama, the day got pushed away. And the night came. So Neshav can have two possible applications. It can mean the night was pushed away and the morning came. So in that case, Neshav means morning. As in the pasuk describing Melchemes David, that he beat them mihaneshav from morning until ha'erev, until night, as well as have a meaning of evening. In that case, Neshav means the day was pushed away and the night came, as in the case of David HaMelech, that who woke up, Kedamti Baneshav, and evidently that means he used to be up in the beginning of the night, because otherwise, if Neshav over there means morning, it wouldn't be a Chiddush, it wouldn't be extolling David HaMelech's virtues. Everybody gets up in the morning. So evidently over there it means evening. In that case, Neshav means the beginning of the night. Continues the Gemara. We said David HaMelech used to wake up at Chatzos. How did he know the exact point of midnight? Could it be that David HaMelech recognized the exact midpoint, when it is? We find that Moshe Rabbeinu didn't know when exactly was Chatzos. At the point of Chatzos, I will go out to Mitzrayim and begin Makas B'cheres. Moshe Rabbeinu was warning Pari in the name of Hashem that at Kachatzois will begin Makas B'cheres. Says the Gemara, my Kachatzois, why is he using a term Kachatzois, which would denote approximation at about Chatzois? If Hashem used that term, could it be that Hashem had a doubt of the point of Chatzois? It can't be. It must be Ela de Amalei B'Chatzois. Hashem himself used an exact term, B'Chatzois. Moshe Rabbeinu needed to use an approximate term because he himself couldn't pinpoint the exact point of Chatzois and wouldn't be able to back up his words accurately. Therefore he changed and he said Kachatzois. So we see that Moshe Rabbeinu was unsure, was uncertain as to the exact point of Chatzois. How could it be that David HaMelech knew? Says the Gemara, David Simon Havalei. He had an alarm clock. There was a simon, a sign, in which he had an indication of the point, the exact point of Chatzois. There was a harp hanging, suspended above the bed of David HaMelech. The nekavim, the Rashi says the holes of the harp were facing north. As soon as Chatzois came, the northerly wind which blows at that point, and strummed the strings of the harp of Menagad Me'elav and began to play music. And this served as an indication of the exact point of Chatzois. Continues the Gemara. What happened at Chatzois? Miyad, immediately, he would get up and start learning until daybreak. Once day came, once Amud Shachar arrived, the sages, the Chacham of Klal Yisrael, entered. They had an appointment, a daily appointment with David HaMelech to discuss the needs, the tzrachim of Klal Yisrael. And here is one example of what transpired on one of those mornings. Our master the king, Klal Yisrael needs parnasa. They need sustenance. Go feed each other, go work for each other, and let the nation be self-sufficient. That's not enough. A handful of food can't possibly satiate a lion. A pit can never be refilled with its own dirt. Inevitably, some of the dirt gets lost, and it can't be properly, fully refilled. They were indicating that we can't be self-sufficient, and it is not enough to be misparents from each other. We need something else to help us. If that's the case, he told them, go battle the legions. That was a time in history when the Amalekim, the legions from Amalek, would come and raid the land and deprive them of their produce and make it hard economically. Go chase them away, go battle the Amalekim and restore our economic stability, and that will provide parnasa for Klal Yisrael. That was David HaMelech's advice to the sages. Miyad, immediately, they would seek advice, counsel from Achitophel, how to strategize this war. And then they went to the Sanhedrin, Lochem Sanhedrin, they went to ask Rishus of the Sanhedrin and have them pray for them. They would ask of the Choshe Mishpat, they would ask whether they will be matzliach, whether they will succeed. What do we find the sequence in the pasuk? After they went to Achitophel, Benoyo ben Yehoyada, they went to Benoyo ben Yehoyada, who was the Rosh HaBezdin, the head of the Sanhedrin. Then came Aviyasar, who was the Kohen Gadol, who wore the Choshen. And then came V'sar Tzva l'melech Yoav, the commander of the king's army, who was Yoav. Achitophel, says the Gemara, Yoyetz, he was the advisor. The advice that Achitophel provided, he was the advisor. Benoyo ben Yehoyada, he was the Av Bezdin, the Sanhedrin. Aviyasar, who was Aviyasar? El Urim B'tumim, he was the Kohen Gadol who wore the Urim B'tumim. Benoyo ben Yehoyada ala Karsi al Plesi, that we see that Benoyo ben Yehoyada, who was the Sanhedrin, he preceded the Karsi and a Plesi. They first went to the Sanhedrin and then to the Karsi and a Plesi, which is the Choshen Mishpat. Says the Gemara, Karsi Plesi. Why are they called Karsi a Plesi? Karsi should curse him the Choshen would set forth its words with clarity, with preciseness. Paul's Plesi shemuflam the words of the Choshen were wondrous. The last and final stage was Sar Tzva l'melech Yoav. Yoav, who was the commander of the king's army, would lead them into battle. So in conclusion, the Seder, the sequence of events was, they went to battle by first going to get advice from Achitophel, then they went to the Sanhedrin to ask Rishus, then they went to the Choshen Mishpat to ask Hashem, to ask the Choshen whether they will be successful. The final thing was joining the army of Yoav. Omar Rav Yitzchak bar Ada v'amar lo Rav Yitzchak beidar v'idi. Where do we find a pasuk, a hint to the harp playing near David HaMelech's bed? Mikra, Ura kavoidi, awaken my honor, meaning don't honor yourself by sleeping like the other kings did, but rather wake up early. Ura hanevel v'chinar, these instruments, the navel and the chinar, would awaken me. Ira shachar, I didn't allow the shachar, the morning, to awaken me. I was Arir Shachar, I preceded the Shachar, I actually awoke the morning.